Beyond Crazy, Heather Riley. A wise story. If you want to see God laugh, tell him your plans. When I met my husband, I was certain that I was planning a life of stability. Looking back, that seems absurd. I met Steven at the end of a volatile, passionate, painful relationship, and immediately after the suicide of a close friend, I was consciously looking for my rock in the midst of unexpected pain. And Steven was an exemplary rock. He was loyal, resolute, responsible, brilliant, and serious. We were young, but I felt safe in my choice, and we married at 24. We had both completed graduate programs in the United States and decided to make our lives there. Before we could blink, we were gainfully employed homeowners expecting our first child. When our daughter was born with a disability, Steven's unwavering support reassured me that I had chosen my partner wisely. He helped me manage my grief in the face of her diagnosis with remarkable composure. Months passed, and my feelings of disappointment were slowly transformed into pride and hope. Steven too seemed to be looking to the future and began to consider more lucrative professional pursuits. We decided to move back to Toronto so that I could be nearer to my family and he could explore his career interests. The move included the purchase of a beautiful new home as well as a promising job for Steven, but already I was noticing a subtle yet frightening deterioration of his mood. By the time our first child was born, I was pregnant with our second, and I was certain of the change in my husband. It is hard to characterize those initial months of concern. The same qualities that I had so admired in Steven were now stretched to alarming extremes. Whereas his sense of responsibility had once made me feel safe, he was now consumed with our finances and expressed irrational dissatisfaction with the choices we had made. This was troubling to me because we were financially secure, living in a beautiful home, realizing all of our hopes and dreams. Steven seemed aloof, detached from the most critical decisions affecting our lives. I remember having to choose whether or not to undergo prenatal testing, an extremely difficult choice for me to make, and Steven seemed not to care even remotely. Steven was spending almost all of his time at work, and when he was home, he was angry and frustrated. Although I understood the professional pressures on him, I was sleep deprived and emotionally depleted. I needed my partner's support. Most of our arguing had to do with the care of our children. While I knew Steven loved the girls, he was almost completely uninvolved with their care. The baby was extremely fussy, and I was averaging 3 hours of sleep each night. After 6 weeks of this virtually unbearable routine, I pleaded with him one afternoon to take the baby just for 1 hour so I could sleep. I was so run down that my body was trembling. Steven held our crying baby for 5 minutes, then angrily marched upstairs, put the baby firmly down on the bed next to me, ordered me to deal with her myself, and slammed the door. Hours later, when he came to bed, I blurted out that I wanted a divorce. I put all of my own needs on hold to accommodate his, since Steven was the one who was sick. At one point, Steven, in a state of utter desperation, wanted to move back to the US. He felt that if he returned to his old job and to a city with a lower cost of living, his depression might improve. My instincts left me feeling dubious and sick at the prospect. Our baby was just months old. I was finally feeling comfortable with the special therapies I had found for our older daughter. We had just moved into a new home, and I was relying heavily on friends and family for emotional support. However, Steven can be very convincing, especially in a state of depression. I ultimately and unbelievably in retrospect agreed to the move, even with the understanding that our marriage would likely fail. By this point, he was predicting its demise on a daily basis. By agreeing to move, I was agreeing to leave what little security I had in my life, and I was prepared to do so. anticipating that I would soon be a single mother. A turning point materialized through my new job, an opportunity to be away from Steven for a month. It was an easy decision to make. Being away from Steven, I felt free to experience my emotions without guilt or frustration. I was able to read, exercise, and enjoy my children without the impact of depression looming large. I could laugh and not feel foolish for experiencing joy. I could spend time with friends and not worry that it was causing Steven stress. I stopped walking on eggshells, and I started soothing myself. Steven and I speak regularly, not just for the sake of our children. I still care about him very much. I miss many aspects of him and wish we had found our way together. But with 2 young daughters and my own need for stability and support, I was simply unable to meet his very demanding emotional needs without completely neglecting my own. Steven continues to battle his demons with remarkable determination, and I am still hopeful that he will ultimately win the war. Arguably, the hardest lesson for me has been to discover that while mental illness is horribly stigmatized and misunderstood, the other extreme is just as dangerous. Depression isn't illness, but it does not give a person license to be mean or insensitive or selfish. When you love someone who's depressed, temptation to indulge the illness is overwhelming, and while I would never suggest that we go back to an archaic snap out of it attitude, the blindness of love can be self-defeating.